Some people poke a bear and walk away thinking nothing will happen. This is the story of what happens when the bear owns the only plow within 12 miles, and it's the middle of February. My name is not important. What is important is that I've lived at the end of Crestwood Lane for 11 years. It's a private road, about a quarter-mile long, that cuts through a small HOA community of 22 homes nestled in the kind of rural valley that looks gorgeous on a real estate listing and absolutely brutal in a snowstorm. We get real winters here. Not the kind where people post photos of a light dusting and call it a blizzard. I'm talking 3 to 5 feet of snow between December and March. The kind of winter where your car doesn't move for days if someone doesn't plow. That someone, for the past 7 years, had been me. I bought a used truck-mounted plow back in 2017 because I was tired of being snowed in. I'm a contractor. I work with my hands. And missing a job because of an unplowed road is money I don't have time to lose. I started plowing my own driveway and the main road out of habit. Neighbors noticed. A few asked if I'd keep doing it. I said sure. It wasn't a business. I didn't charge anyone. I just did it because it needed doing, and I had the equipment to do it. 7 winters. I plowed that road through 7 winters without a single complaint. Then, on a Tuesday morning in February, I found a bright orange envelope tucked under my windshield wiper. Inside was a formal HOA fine notice for $75. The violation listed: unsightly tire tracks and plow debris left on community property following unauthorized vehicle operation. I read it standing in my driveway in the cold. Then I read it again. Then I went inside, poured a cup of coffee, and started thinking very carefully about my next move. Before I tell you what I did, let me tell you about Dale. Dale moved into Crestwood Lane about 2 years ago, retired from some kind of mid-level management job in the city. He had strong opinions about lawn edging, approved mailbox colors, and what time people could run their generators. Within 6 months of moving in, he had run for HOA board president, won, mostly because nobody else wanted the job, and immediately set about making the community what he called more professional. Professional meant more rules, more letters, more fines. In his first year, Dale issued 34 violation notices across 22 homes. He fined a widow named Loretta for having a bird feeder 3 inches too close to her property line. He fined a young couple for parking a moving truck in their own driveway for more than 4 hours. He sent a letter to a man named Gene, who had lived on Crestwood Lane for 19 years, informing him that his welcome mat was not in compliance with aesthetic guidelines. Gene's welcome mat said, "Hello." I had received one warning before, a note about my contractor truck being parked outside overnight, which I had ignored because there was nothing in the HOA bylaws that actually prohibited it. Dale didn't pursue it. But the plow fine was different. This was a formal notice, $75, payable within 14 days or subject to additional penalties. The official reason, according to Dale's fine notice, was that my plow had left unsightly gray slush tracks on the road surface and had displaced gravel onto community green space. That was it. That was the violation. 7 years of free snow removal, and I was being fined for making the road look slightly less than perfect in the middle of a snowstorm. I appealed the fine formally in writing the same day. Dale denied it within 48 hours. He said, and I want to quote this directly, "The board appreciates past informal efforts, but cannot endorse unregulated equipment use that creates aesthetic and liability concerns for the community." Unregulated equipment use. I folded that letter very neatly, put it in a kitchen drawer, and walked out to the garage. I climbed into my truck and I unbolted the plow from the front mount. I cleaned it off, rolled it to the back of the garage, and covered it with a tarp. Crestwood Lane was officially on its own. I won't pretend I felt nothing watching the weather forecast that week. I felt something. I felt very calm and extremely interested. The storm rolled in on a Thursday night. I'm talking serious accumulation. Forecasters were saying 14 to 18 inches by Friday afternoon. I made sure I had groceries. I filled my generator. I was completely prepared. And when I looked out my window at 6 a.m. Friday morning and saw Crestwood Lane buried under 1.5 feet of fresh snow, with more coming down hard, I poured myself a coffee and watched. By 8 a.m., I could hear engines revving, people trying to get their cars out of driveways. By 9 a.m., a truck had gotten stuck at the bend in the road where the snow drifts worst. By 10 a.m., 3 cars were stuck, and the road was completely impassable. My phone started buzzing. Neighbors, some confused, some asking if I was sick. One asked if something was wrong with my truck. I texted back a simple answer to everyone. Truck's fine. I got fined for plowing. Decided to stop. There was a long pause in the texts after that. Then someone asked, "Who do we call?" Great question. The HOA had no plowing contract. Why would they? They'd had free plowing for 7 years. There was no vendor on retainer, no agreement with the county. Because Crestwood Lane was private, the county didn't touch it anyway. And the nearest commercial plow service was a company 14 miles out that charged $280 per visit with a 48-hour booking window. By Friday afternoon, Dale sent a message to the community group chat. He said the HOA was working on a solution and asked residents to remain patient. He did not mention the fine. He did not mention me. He mentioned, very briefly, that perhaps a community plow fund could be established going forward. I put my phone down and went back to watching the snow fall. Here's where it escalated beyond anything I expected, even for a man who expected a lot. Over the next 8 days, 2 more storms came through. Nothing historic, but consistent. The road never fully cleared from the first one before the second hit. The commercial company came out once, charged the HOA $280, did a mediocre job, and left ruts down the center of the road that froze solid overnight into a surface that could generously be described as a luge track. A delivery driver refused to come down the road. Loretta, the woman with the bird feeder violation, missed a doctor's appointment because she couldn't get her car out. Jean, the 19-year resident with the Hello Mat, called the HOA board number 5 times and got Dale's voicemail each time. Dale finally called an emergency meeting. I went. Of course I went. The room was tense in a way that rooms only get when people have been inconvenienced for long enough that they stop being polite about it. Dale opened by talking about long-term solutions and community infrastructure planning. He used the phrase, "going forward," about 11 times. Then Loretta raised her hand and asked why I had stopped plowing. Dale started to explain that there had been a compliance matter and that informal arrangements create liability exposure. He was using his management voice, measured, bureaucratic, designed to make unreasonable things sound procedural. Loretta cut him off. "You fined the man $75 for plowing our road," she said, "and now I can't get to my doctor." The room went quiet. Jean asked Dale how much the commercial plow had cost. Dale confirmed $280. Jean asked how many times they'd need that per season. Dale said possibly 8 to 12. Someone in the back did the math out loud. That was up to $3,360 per season, split 22 ways, for worse service than they'd had for free. Dale proposed a motion to establish a plowing fund. The vote was 19 against, 3 for. Then someone made a different motion, rescind my fine, formally apologize, in writing, and ask me to resume plowing under a simple written agreement that protected both parties. The vote was 21 for, 1 against. You don't need me to tell you who voted against. Here's what a lot of people don't expect from this kind of story. I said yes, not immediately. I let the written apology arrive first, signed by the full board, including a very tight-looking signature from Dale. I let the fine be formally rescinded and documented in the HOA meeting minutes, so it was on the record permanently. Then I sat down with a neighbor who happened to be a paralegal, and together we drafted a simple one-page agreement between me and the HOA. The agreement was straightforward. I would plow Crestwood Lane as needed during winter months. In exchange, the HOA would pay me $50 per plow, far below market rate, still a fair acknowledgement, and explicitly acknowledged that plow tracks and minor gravel displacement were An expected and accepted result of snow removal operations. It also included a clause that said any future fine issued to me for snow-related maintenance activity would void the agreement immediately. The board signed it at the next meeting, all of them, including Dale, who signed it without making eye contact with anyone. One more thing happened that I still smile about. At the same meeting, the community voted to amend the HOA bylaws. The new amendment stated that any board member who issued a fine that was later rescinded by community vote would have that fine amount deducted from their own HOA dues as a penalty. It was designed to make board members think twice before using fines as a power move. It passed 20-2. Dale voted against it. So did one other board member who had apparently been fined for a bird feeder once and had some complicated feelings about the whole thing.